guest this week on Word of Movement is, for me, the quintessential guest for the show. Farid Herrera has been around for a long time, and not just with parkour. In this three-part interview, we discover his own path, traced by parkour, matured by capoeira, sustained by the love to move. From his experience developing the Parkour Dance Company project, we also discuss topics that range from the trivial to the microscopic. I hope you enjoy our run through the stories of this very fascinating mover. This is Farid Herrera, and this is Word of Movement.
I think another interesting aspect on that, actually, that I feel somehow parkour's given me, and I think this is not, I guess it's not exclusive to parkour, but I think I found this through parkour. So I got this mindset that essentially you can train anything. Like, I feel like I can train anything. So, like, if for example, I want to become good at something very niche or very strange, like, that you might think, it's like an innate trait, like, for example, I was quite introverted and not amazing at talking to people, you know, and you think to yourself, like, oh, well, that's just the way I am, isn't it, you know? And then actually, because of all the crazy stuff I ended up training and doing, I thought, well, actually, I could probably just train that as well, like I train parkour. I'll just get good at it, you know? Like, it just kind of gives you this mindset, and you're like, you start realizing, actually, you can train whatever the heck you want. It's not limited to physical pursuits. Yeah, obviously, you can train and become really good at a tennis player if you want. But actually, and then so I started working on all these different other things about myself that I thought I needed training in, essentially, you know? I think that's like bit like the self-improvement part of parkour, I think.
Yes.
Somehow it makes you reflect inwards, you know. You probably, at some point or another, if you're training, you're probably standing behind a horrendous movement that you're just thinking, why am I even doing this, you know? And then you really have to, like, reflect inward. So it sort of makes you think about who you are, I guess, in a strange way. So yeah, I kind of got that from parkour as well. Just that I can train anything. It doesn't have to be physical.
For sure, man.
It's quite a strange but funny perspective. But it might even be obvious to some people. You know, they might just think, yeah, cool, I'll train to be good at talking to people. I'll just go out and do that right now. But for me, it was not that obvious. You know, it's just sort of like I regimented some training around being good at talking to people. Like, you know.
Yeah. You know that
that's strange.
A funny thing about parkour, and I know we're going way out of the line. I still have a lot of questions for you, but I'll say something about this. The funny thing about parkour, from what I've been learning and from what I've been experiencing, is that parkour attracts a lot of people with problems. Some physical, mostly mental. Like you, as you were saying, you were a bit socially awkward. Me, myself, I am very socially awkward.
Quite introverted,
and a lot of, you know, anxiety problems. I know people that have even worse problems, and through parkour, it might have been something else, but it just so happened that with parkour, they actually managed to overcome, or at least learn how to live and cope and not let that thing take control of their lives, and have a more free life. It's
funny you mentioned that, actually. I don't know if you saw that one of Kai Willis's video ages ago where he's like ranting about how parkour is nothing special.
I remember, but I don't remember it completely, man. I remember the video.
So in that video, he says, I mean, I don't know if he's trying to rattle up the crowd or what he's trying to do, or if he means this, or I really don't know the intention behind it, but it did make me laugh a bit at the end, or at one point in the video. He said people that do parkour are just like geeks at the start, like they're all just a bunch of geeks, like why else would you want to jump off stuff, like, or something, like, you know, it's not the exact quote, you can go back and watch the video, see exactly what he says, but he says something like that. And yeah, sure enough, I don't know. It kind of made me think of what you're saying. Perhaps geek is the wrong word, but maybe obviously people with problems, or I don't know. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I was thinking about what kind of people like does parkour track. Like who in their right mind would want to go out and do some of the stuff we do? You know, like why? You know, it's quite interesting. I think the motives change over time as well, don't they?
For sure, especially the last few years with this new trend of the movement culture and all that.
Right.
Actually came to show that you know, it's not about the result, it's all about the process.
Sure.
Which kind of helps educating people about parkour, because people still associate parkour with very dangerous stunts, where actually there's a big process behind it, a very safe process behind it, a very progressive learning phase behind it. So before we go into that, because I think you have some things to say about it, I just want you to just dive a little bit deeper in your training. So you started with parkour.
Yes.
How far did you go, and when did you start to do something else or combining stuff?
Right. Well, I was speaking to someone about this the other day, actually. Some of the stuff that we were sort of thinking about doing back in the day. So like wall flips and stuff, obviously, you know, it was you can probably run up a tree and do a backflip. That's probably possible. Just, it is. And then my friend was like, this was like, we were 15. This was like, I don't know, I'm 28 now, so it was like 18 years ago, essentially. And then my friend was like, do you think you can like run to the wall, kick it, and instead of going backwards, go forwards, you know, which is the essential wall front, which is like a beginner move now. You know, essentially we were thinking, is that even possible? Like, that's where we were, you know what I mean? So in our heads, and I guess relative to the time and to where parkour was in its lifeline, I think we essentially, without really knowing it and without really trying either, we were like sort of like, well, I guess we were trying, but we were sort of pushing the boundaries, you know. We were like, I wonder if this is possible, you know, and we would like think about it. And then sure enough, a year after, I think that Free Run Evolution video came out, and Chase was just like doing it, like he was just like doing wall fronts, and we were like, oh my god, that's that thing. The whole thing, that's when it started really blowing up, because Jump London came out, that documentary, and then a year after, I think it was Jump Britain, or 2 years after. And I think that's when most people started really clocking on essentially to parkour, and that's when most people started training. And during that time, actually, I wasn't doing much training at all. So essentially the level was going up and up, like people were just like, there was like an expansion in what was possible, essentially, and I was sort of not really part of that wave, essentially, at that time.
And when did you start? When did you start to do other types of movement? I want to get into that project that you were part of. I don't know if you still are, the Parkour Dance Company.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Before that, when did you start? Because I've seen some videos of you in Spain, I guess.
Yes.
Doing some capoeira based moves. I can obviously see, because it's kind of related, I can see some Ido Portal kind of thing also.
Sure.
I don't know if it's true or not, but did you see in Ido some influence, or were you just training capoeira as it is, or what was going on there in your movement, in your approach to movement?
Right. So I think it was in 2011 or 2012, I got asked by a friend of mine to come help teach a workshop. Now, I wasn't too keen. This was a parkour workshop. I wasn't actually too keen on teaching at this point. I'd stopped training for a while because I went to uni and then found work, etc. So I'd stopped training, and then eventually I got back into it. So I was training at this time, and then my friend called me up and said, hey, I need someone to help me coach this workshop. You know, we need 2 coaches. Can you help me do it? I said, no, I don't want to do it. I'm too busy trying to get good. I need to train. and all this stuff. So I was like, no, no, no. And he's like, please, please, please. And anyway, I ended up doing it. And I went over and we both coached the workshop. This was Callum, by the way, the guy we picked up Danny with at Euston, I was talking to you about earlier. Yeah. We coached the workshop, and actually I left that workshop feeling super refreshed, essentially. I was like, whoa, that was amazing, actually. I really enjoyed that. So then I started obviously teaching for that project. It was for a charity in East London called K&I Foundation, which is a bereavement charity. Quick shout out to Dean Ibrahim, he runs that. So yeah, and then I got involved with that project. And as part of that, got us some other gigs, and he needed someone to teach capoeira. So he got a friend of mine at the time who was a dancer, who also did capoeira, and they lived in East London. So Dean got this person, a friend of mine called Jacob, to go teach the workshop. And Jacob needed an assistant, and they obviously figured that, you know, it'd be easier to just get me on board because I was already there doing the parkour. So I assisted Jacob doing the capoeira workshop, and that's sort of how I found out. I mean, I'd known about capoeira, but that's when I really got sort of, yeah, in with it, essentially. And after that, I decided to start capoeira, and I found a group close by, and I've been going ever since, essentially. So that's kind of how I got it. So essentially, although I had heard of Ido and I'd seen the stuff he was doing, and I did think he was amazing, it wasn't actually the turning point. The turning point essentially was my first capoeira class. I walked in, and I kid you not, Alex, there was about 10 Ido Portals in there. Like, literally, I was like, this is incredible, you know. I was like, because when I'd heard of Ido, I'd been like, oh wow, you know, he's like doing this weird stuff, you know, like I'd not equated it to capoeira, essentially. I just thought he was like kind of crazy doing all his mad stuff. And then when I walked into the class, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is what Ido's doing. And then I was like, no, yeah, exactly. This is what Ido's doing. They're not doing what he's doing. He's doing what they're doing, essentially, is what I figured. And that was kind of, yeah, that's how that whole kind of shift came about. Yeah.
So did you also do any other type of sport, or did you start also dancing? Did you learn how to dance?
My involvement with parkour dance essentially was mostly as a parkour visionary, a parkour guy, right? So the girl that runs parkour dance, Jade Shaw, she's from a dance background, and you know, being parkour dance and wanting to fuse both the disciplines together, she needed someone with a parkour background to sort of help get that all kicked off. And teach the parkour side of the workshops and all this kind of stuff, and sort of develop a syllabus that we think kind of meshes both of them together. So that's kind of where I come in terms of parkour dance. So I didn't actually do any formal dance training or anything. I did go to a few contemporary dance classes, but it was nothing serious, nothing too I didn't carry on going. I didn't essentially train it. I did go to some classes, and yeah, my involvement with parkour dance was sort of based upon the parkour perspective, and sort of helping kind of develop the syllabus in a way, and help to teach the workshops and give some input into how we can infuse some parkour into the stuff that she was already doing. So that was kind of my involvement. I don't know if you can hear me with this.
I can.
Yeah, cool.
Someone is flying over us.
That's how that came about.
Yeah. This is, for me, it's something that makes a lot of sense, and I'll tell you some little stories about it. Like, for me,
sure,
it makes sense to blend parkour with other things because of the whole purpose of parkour, which is to be free, not only in your mind but in your body. So if you only train parkour, you're not really doing parkour. I don't know if you understand it, right? So if you want to be free, you cannot just stick to one thing. You got to try other things.
Sure.
Because there are other types of movement involved.
Sure.
When I started off, I was already diving in a little bit into circus. So
Right.
I actually found a relationship between, for instance, juggling with parkour, because the coordination and the hand-eye movement and all of those things that you have to have in your brain, it's actually something
Right.
very useful for your movement in parkour, and vice
Right,
versa.
yeah, can imagine. Yeah.
The same thing, as I progressed and I got more information, I realized that, for instance, dancing, contemporary dance especially, because it's a more free-form type of dance, is also very, very beneficial for someone who practices parkour, because we tend to lack a lot of flexibility. For instance, we tend to
Absolutely.
we tend to lack a lot of that free movement that contemporary dance offers, which is you move anyway, each way, it doesn't matter. With parkour, we tend to be a bit linear in our movements.
I can agree, yeah.
In, for instance, contemporary dance can teach you to be a bit more versatile in your movement.
Sure.
So those are some examples. Obviously, Capoeira has a lot of influence. Maybe not so much in the parkour side of things, maybe on the free running side of things, but the names don't really matter. The movement matters, and it's all related. And hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to thumbs up. Also share it with as many people as possible so everybody knows what's going on, and of course subscribe to stay tuned for another episode of Word of Movement.